Hello, passionate people. My name is Ali Hashemi, and I am a motivational content creator and the founder of Creator X Arabia. And today I am your host in SEF Backstage Pass podcast. And today I have with me Ali Hashemi, co-founder of GluCare, to talk about his co-founder journey, the business, and the healthcare as well. How are you, Ali?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Thank you for being with us. First of all, I want to know, why do you guys start GluCare?
Aha. Okay. So every good founder story has a personal connection. Most of your listeners probably know that we're in the metabolic health space. We tackled diabetes head on, and everyone has a diabetic in their family. We did. My grandfather unfortunately passed away from related conditions to diabetes. So diabetic for a long time. So everyone's got that. My co-founder's father is diabetic. My wife's father's diabetic. So it was a very personal, real thing for us as founders, but beyond the personal connection. And that's not unique because everyone has a diabetic in their family. Beyond that, I guess you could say I had already built and sold a business and had the luxury of kind of being able to think and be deliberate about the next thing and the next problem, challenge, right? So it's definitely among the biggest problems out there that remains unsolved, right? If you look at the latest data, and I have access to some unpublished data, which is worse, much worse than the published data. You could say that between 20 to 30% of the population here is probably diabetic. Another 20, 25% is probably pre-diabetic. So your TAM is massive. It's half the population. And it's getting worse, right? So it's an unsolved problem, already huge, getting worse. So when you think about it from pure impact perspective, I can't actually think of something in healthcare that would have a larger impact at scale than solving metabolic dysfunction.
What services do you provide at GluCare? What solutions as well?
So that's continuously expanding now. We started by having an absolutely maniacal focus on diabetes. So taking care of the end-to-end needs of a diabetic patient. And those needs are heavy. Any of your listeners who have a diabetic in the family, they know it's not an easy disease to manage, and it's a very heavy burden. So, for those people who don't know, I'll walk through the typical life of a diabetic. You've got to take your bloods at least once a quarter. You've got to see your endocrinologist or your diabetologist or your GP once a quarter. And then it's very likely other systems are affected, especially if you're a poorly controlled diabetic. So you might have to see a cardiologist for your heart, or a nephrologist for your kidney, or a neurologist because you've got peripheral nerve disease, or an ophthalmologist because you've already got early signs of retinal dysfunction, and on and on and on. So the real problem with diabetes is not just that your blood sugars are all over the place. It's what happens because of that to all of your other organs and systems, because the common link is your circulatory system. And when you've just got too much blood shooting around in your body, it just causes damage everywhere. So it becomes a really heavy burden. Imagine if every month you've got multiple doctor visits to attend to, and if no one's helping you manage that and you're on your own, and your insurance company's a pain, and every single time it's fighting with them to get reimbursement and approvals, and oh my gosh, it's hard. So we started by just having a very human-centric view on this. It's okay, how can we improve the journey? How can we make what's today an incredibly burdensome path something that is, look, it's never going to be fun, but something that's at least less of a burden and less time consuming. So we built a center, and I'd love for all of your listeners to come and visit us because we do much more than just diabetes now. But it's a beautiful facility. It doesn't look like a healthcare facility. It kind of looks like an Apple store or an art gallery. And you come in and it's kind of chill, and you take your bloods, and those bloods get immediately run. My patients are surprised, to say the least, but they one of them said, my gosh, it feels like magic, because we do the bloods real time. By the time you take all of your tests, your bloods are done. So within 30, 40 minutes, you've had everything finished, and you see your physician with all the data in hand. And then your physician sits and walks you through all that data. Another important part of the journey is the engagement piece. So we've built a robust human layer, right? There's a ton of tech, and there's a ton of processes and lab tests and bloods and all that kind of stuff. But the human piece of it is the most important, because that human piece, which is real time with your physician to go through on a screen this big, all of your data in one view.
How practical is that?
I mean, no one does that because you know why? no one gets paid to do that, right? Insurance companies don't pay doctors for how good of a service they provide to patients and how well they describe what's going on inside their body. Insurance companies pay physicians for a billing code. And then most practices, and I don't want to disparage the whole medical community, but it's a bit, factory line. 10 minutes in and out, you're done. Next, here's your prescription. See you next year kind of a thing. We really take time with our patients because we didn't build GluCare as a business. We built GluCare as a lab, as a sandbox to test a hypothesis, which was new, which was basically traditional care has failed. We know that. It's obvious in the data. Digital health is up and coming.
Yeah.
Okay. So in 2019, when we started thinking about this stuff, a little bit earlier, 2018, digital health was focused on the pure digital journey of helping metabolic health people, right? So, not so many CGM companies back then, but, using BGM, the blood glucose meter where you prick your finger, and then food logging and other stuff, purely with an app, sometimes with a coach, rarely, to try to improve things. And, good first step, but we just didn't feel like that would ever earn the right to win. We felt like if you really want to move the needle on the disease, you've actually got to control all of the behaviors, all of the incentives, all of the mechanics, end to end. So we just built everything.
And also, there's not much also awareness around it. Yes, there are campaigns. Yes, social media talks about it. And we see campaigns even from doctors. But however, how many of us do actually do the regular checks earlier on to see if we have diabetes or not and things like that? I feel that part is also very important.
I feel like that's changing. Certainly, 4 or 5 years ago, very, very few people, if you said metabolic health as a phrase, everyone would kind of look at you. What is that? What is that? Then you say diabetes, and then some people get it. Yeah. Pre-diabetes, most people didn't get it.
Yeah.
But today, there's a huge community of online science educators, people who are on social media that are helping educate people. People wear their CGMs and eat something and test it out. So there's entire TikTok accounts dedicated to the cause and effect of, blood sugar. So that's improving. We're certainly being proactive about our approach. So we do a lot of outreach in the community and a lot of outreach into the employer environment. So we'll go to companies, take medical teams there because we know people are busy, and we'll take bloods on site. We'll go to a law firm because, busy folks set up in their boardroom, doctor, nurse, phlebotomist, everything. The whole team is there. We've set up a little mini clinic, and we'll just do an awareness campaign, do a wide scale screening to find who's pre-diabetic and who's at risk.
But see, that's a practical campaign.
Yeah.
It's not just, just a PR on social media. No, that's what we need.
Yeah. Well, we don't announce this stuff on social media anyway. We just do it. Just do it. It's the right thing to do, right? Yeah. I mean, little known fact because your insurance company doesn't want you to know. It's actually part of the regulations that every insurance plan must include coverage for diabetes screening. How many of your listeners know that?
I did not know.
Nobody knows it. Why? Because your insurance company doesn't want you to know that you're pre-diabetic, because once you know you're pre-diabetic, then you will go get treatment. And guess what happens? You suddenly go from a very profitable patient who's never seen a doctor to a patient who might be on Ozempic, who might be taking other medications, who might be wearing a CGM, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You're going to spend thousands of dollars trying to reverse your prediabetes. And that's probably related to weight. It's probably related to a few other things. So you will suddenly become a very expensive patient for that insurance company. And the ROI for that insurance company is zero, because it's more likely than not, next year, your employer will switch to a different insurance company.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So there's these structural, I was on stage moderating a discussion on longevity, which got a little spicy a couple of days ago at Arab Health, where we raised exactly this point that, insurance companies have zero incentive to invest in longevity, anything where the ROI is measured greater than 12 months. So we try as much as we can.
But there are a lot of rooms for you guys actually to improve and to improve the whole healthcare, I see so much light in that. But also personal journey with the people that are coming to you, how important it is and how do you build it? In terms of our patients or our team? Because there's actually really interesting stories on both sides. I would love to hear both. Yeah, I mean, so patients, obviously, the degree of love and loyalty, I mean, it's odd to say this.
in healthcare in particular, but our patients love us, and they form these bonds with our team that it's almost familial. People talk about Dr. Yusuf as if he's their father, a second father. It's really the degree of trust that our team has managed to build, and the degree of empathy that they express is second to none. And that's not something that we ever told them to do.
Wow.
You know,
It's just the vibe that
the vibe.
It
Just organically became.
Yeah.
You know, we have obviously a very strong North Star. My co-founders and I, Zina and Hassan, you know, we embody that ourselves. And I think that's important for every founder. Embody your mission, embody your values, embody your philosophy. And that then propagates. But seeing it, you know, manifest in this new journey was really something special. And you see it, like you go to our Google reviews, we have, I don't know, 250 whatever reviews now. They're all 5 stars, except for maybe 4.
No, but that's amazing, because also if you go to healthcare, for instance, sometimes it gets too commercial. So if I enter to a doctor and they're just like on their laptop or computer, and then
it feels transactional.
Yes, and I want someone to listen to me, actually, to my journey, to understand why I'm having this issue.
Right.
It's not a matter of 1 + 1 = 2 all the time. You know what I
Correct,
mean?
yeah.
So I think that's very important for patients.
So there's, you know, trust and engagement is a huge part of it, and being non-commercial about it is part of it, but also being outcome driven. You know, our patients know that we're not there to sell them a drug or a device or a protocol or a diet plan or whatever. We're there to achieve an outcome with them. That is actually the core of the GluCare brand. You know, it's not anything else. It's just one thing. GluCare equals outcome, right? Because that is what matters, and that, I think, is what we collectively as an industry have to drive towards in terms of what we pay for. We shouldn't be paying for the drugs as a single thing and the tests as a thing, you know, or the diagnostics. We should find a mechanism, whether it's through insurance or other payment mechanisms, through regulators that are mandating degrees of data reporting and outcome reporting. We need to find a way to get providers like us accountable to the outcomes they produce. Like every other industry on the planet, you get paid for what you produce for your customers. Only in healthcare do we kind of get away with doing a bunch of stuff and then not talking about how well or how good the impact was. So, you know, this is a nice transition to talking about the impact on our team, because I think that's as important. We publish a lot. So every team member, from the moment they're hired, it's implied in their KPIs that they have to do research and publish.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
So more than any other private company, I think, in this region, we are just constantly publishing. Interesting, different, and everyone's encouraged to take a very scientific, methodical view on their practice and to ask interesting questions, because we're constantly learning. I mean, we're just at the beginning of our journey. There is still so much for us to learn, and every inquisitive mind added to that mix is an incremental improvement. So every new physician adds to our research power. But the anecdote that I love sharing, and this is something that neither me nor my co-founders were smart enough to figure out on our own. One day I was interviewing. So this is, you know, the hidden impact on your own team when mission and vision are so strongly ingrained in how you sort of run a business. Sometimes things surprise you. So I was, you know, hiring a new cardiologist, and I brought a candidate in and interviewed her with my medical director, who has been with us since the beginning, Dr. Yusuf. And Dr. Yusuf is a German-trained, you know, diabetologist, and very serious, but very friendly, you know. And we were interviewing a cardiologist who's Brazilian, right? You know, you think of a Brazilian and a German, you know, two very different personalities.
Yeah.
And, you know, sometimes with Germans, no offense to any of your German listeners, you don't know when they're being serious or telling the jokes sometimes. I'm getting better at that.
So true.
But at the end of the interview, Dr. Yusuf leans in and tells the candidate, because we liked her, we wanted to offer her a job. And he says, listen, you should know something, that if you decide to accept our job offer and work for GluCare, you'll never leave.
Nice.
And he said it with a straight face.
Yeah.
Totally serious.
Yeah.
And she's sort of looking at him, wondering,
I'm stuck.
are they going to chain me to a dungeon in the basement? What's going on here? So she asked him, she said, Dr. Yusuf, that's a pretty bold statement. What makes you so confident that I'll never leave? So he smiles and he says to her, well, every day I come to work, I feel like Superman.
Wow.
And that feeling is addictive. And you'll feel it too. Because the platform that Ali and Ehsan have built, the data platform, the insight platform, but also the entire sort of vertically integrated system. He says, this platform gives me as a clinician working here superpowers that I didn't have before. Superpowers to drive better, faster impact for every single one of my patients. And that is priceless. So I was like, we're putting that on the website, Dr. Yusuf. That's
It's
amazing.
worth it, yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I tell that story a lot because I mean that really does embody, every business that gets built by a founder. One of the keys to being a successful founder is not just you can have a great idea, you can work super hard, you can raise a lot of money. If you can't be infectious in translating and transferring your vision into the brains and bodies and hearts of other people, you won't get very far.
And also your values. I feel the fundamental is very strong. The values of you and the founders as well. To build that business, it will be impactful, very impactful on the people working with you. So anyways, moving to your co-founder journey.
Co-founder journey, yeah.
Yeah, and partnership. Can you tell us like 3 green flags in a partner?
In terms of looking for a co-founder?
Yes.
Interesting. Green flags. Look, I think the first thing is not to look at the people around you, but to look at yourself. Look in the mirror, and I tell this. So I invest quite a bit, and so when I meet a founder, one of the first things I say is, every morning get up, look in the mirror, and tell yourself that there's somebody out there smarter than you, with more experience than you, with more money than you've got, tackling the same problem you're looking at, and you have to earn the right to win. So it's a bit like, it's not to be defeatist, but it's a humbling exercise to recognize that, it's not about being the smartest person in the room. It's not about having the most money or having the best idea. It's actually about surrounding yourself with people that are much smarter than you are on a common purpose. And so first is looking at yourself. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? And where can you complement those things? I know what I'm reasonably good at. And I know there are certain things where I'm probably not the best person for that, right? So day-to-day operations bores me.
Yeah.
Right? I know that. And so even in my last business, before I even started the business, I brought on board a partner and he was the CEO, not me. He's the CEO. He's the day-to-day guy. Because, the last business was building hospitals. I've never built and run a hospital. I can ideate it. I can fundraise for it. I can build the vision for it. I can build the narrative for it. But am I going to run it? No, there's better people to do that. And so that's probably the only thing that I would focus on is like find, understand your strengths and weaknesses and then find people who are a good complement to that. But more so than that is just values. And this is obviously an obvious one. But, I've had experiences in the past where there was just misalignment of values, ambitions, and over time that can cause fractures that become costly financially, costly emotionally, from a relationship perspective.
Yeah.
And, because it's, building a business with a co-founder arguably is more of a commitment than getting married.
I've heard that so many times actually from co-founders. Yeah.
I mean, I hate to say it, you could divorce your wife or your husband, but it's not that easy to divorce a co-founder who's got equity on the cap table, right?
Yes.
So, yeah, I mean, I say that with the recognition that one of my co-founders is my wife. And so,
interesting.
But no, we've been fortunate. Ehsan, Zina, and I have very different sets of skills. And the three of us complement each other almost perfectly, which is nice because that's, I think, rare. Yeah.
And I think everything on paper, clear on the contract, everything about the partnership is also very important. Also, you mentioned, and you have, let's say, so many people have partners as relatives or family members. So just because they're family member, that doesn't mean when it comes to partnership, it's not written on a contract.
Correct. Yeah, there's what's written and what's not unwritten. What's written is arguably the easier part. right? Get a good lawyer, draft it up,
Exactly.
and you're done. Another piece of advice: don't go cheap on lawyers.
Ooh.
Get good counsel
Based on experience.
Yes. Yeah, good legal advice is worth the money. I'm an investor in a company, great company, Swiftbox, where the founders are brothers. And, you might think, gosh, that's a risk, isn't it? No, actually, I mean, in this case, these brothers each want to prove to each other that they deserve a place on that team, right?
There's a drive.
There's a drive,
Yeah.
right? There's this like familial, brotherly, like, hey, let's knock this out of the park. I recognize it could probably go another way, right? Because you could have family members, relatives, cousins, whatever, siblings, whoever, as part of a team, and then one person doesn't carry their weight. So it can certainly go either way or anything in between. Most investors, and I'm now speaking from an investor hat, not a founder hat, probably see related founders as a red flag. Probably.
Yeah.
I generally do, and it causes me to sort of want to vet that. So there's some nuance there. Yeah, for sure.
Interesting. I want to talk now about your investor journey. So do you invest in different sectors or only healthcare?
Yeah. So in the past, I've invested mainly in two sectors, healthcare and mobility. So I own eCar, which is the region's largest car share company, and everything else is sort of healthcare, but data science.
Yeah.
So, we did well with Mosaic. Mosaic was a great exit story to Databricks over the summer. Today, almost all of my time, attention, and resources are going into metabolic and GluCare.
Nice.
So,
but what did you learn from your experience with like eCar, for instance? On that you applied on GluCare or your next?
Well, I mean, not just eCar, but across the board. I think, and this wasn't a lesson that I learned from investing. This is a lesson I learned going into investing. Was in every single one of these companies, one of the early conversations with the founder is at some point you won't be the right person to run your own business. And you've got to be okay with that. And I need to know that you're okay with that before I invest in your company. Because that's the hard truth that you have to face at some point. You will get to a point, if you're successful, that the company will outgrow you. And that's not a bad thing. Like I said, in my first business, that happened on day zero.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not the CEO. I'm not that guy.
Yeah.
And so that was a lesson going in. And in my own investor journey, it played out. I had certain portfolio companies where the founder could not let go. And we recommended.
They get so emotionally attached.
Oh my gosh, yeah. He, I won't name names here, but it was a company that I had invested in where the founder didn't want to cede.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a power thing; it was a paternal thing, kind of. And we had suggested to him, myself and many of the other investors, you need a co-founder. And he just dragged his feet. He never got a co-founder. And ultimately, what happened? He couldn't raise money. No one believed in him. And the company folded.
That's why sometimes it's very important to have a co-founder. And you should know when also to have, I think, a co-founder.
But look, in the case of eCar has grown massively. The company now has 3,000 plus cars in the region's largest car share company. Will and Ravi, who are the two founders, have now passed the baton over to Gaurav. Gaurav is now the CEO. Analytic dude from Bain, who was the number 2 guy at Luxury Closet. The right guy to take eCar where it is today as a growth business to its next stage. And that was a really good example of a smooth, seamless transition.
Yeah.
Will is still involved in the business. He's still the founder. He's still the idea guy. But the day-to-day kind of like...
That's why it's super important not to be super attached emotionally. Some entrepreneurs think it's my baby, and I started it and everything. I have a question. Do you think... We've heard it a lot, especially on social media, people are born as leaders or as entrepreneurs. Do you think that, or it's a skill that people...
Oh, that's a tough question. It's a tough question because I've got 3 kids and I've got to grapple with nurture versus nature a lot, right? Wow. It's not just about, are you an entrepreneur, but every other question about character and personality. I don't know, to be honest.
I respect that. I respect people who tell me, I don't know.
I don't know. Look, if you break it down, what makes a good entrepreneur, or what makes someone who wants to be an entrepreneur? There is one thing that might be nature, not nurture, which is tolerance for risk.
Mm.
So I know for me, I am way off on the extreme end of the spectrum in terms of risk tolerance.
Mm.
I am not, shy or,
Yeah, you give that vibe. Yeah.
yeah. And that's sometimes not a great thing. But I think you need to have a healthy dose of, I don't want to say reckless abandon, but you need to have a healthy dose of being able to kind of just jump off a cliff
Yes.
for the sake of discovering what's on the other side of that.
Yeah.
But it has to be well calibrated. So I think bad entrepreneurs are people who don't understand how to calibrate risk and mitigate those issues. Good entrepreneurs are the ones who can take on big risk. So that's nature. And then the nurture part is analyzing that risk to understand it, break it down into its first principles, and then figure out how to tackle and mitigate those things that create intrinsic risk.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense. Yeah. طب Ali, if fear was not there in your life, what would have changed?
If fear was not there?
At all.
I think in my case, the opposite question is probably the right one, because I've had things happen early in my life that one would think would be massively catastrophic, which almost killed my fear instinct.
Really?
Yes. Very young,
Okay.
in my early 20s, I was expelled from medical school 3 times. And that was a really, really hard time in my life.
Yeah.
It changed my DNA at a molecular level, right? But I think coming out of that, because I went on and did other things, it somehow broke my fear function. It's odd. Like I don't actually, that's why I say I'm on the sort of extreme in terms of risk. So I will stand up for what I think is right. I'll take principled positions. I'll fight when I think I need to fight something. I won't shy away from it. And that is not necessarily a strength, by the way. It can also be, a handicap if you don't calibrate, right, that risk or that fear properly. But fear in the context of entrepreneurship overall, people who want to be entrepreneurs. I mean, I think fear and that risk calculus go hand in hand. I think those are two sides of the same coin. Fear is the emotion, and risk is kind of the, probability of that emotion becoming real.
Yeah. Off air, before we close this conversation, we talked about the aura ring.
The aura ring, yes.
So please tell us more about it, because it's very exciting, honestly.
Yeah. So look, I mean, we, for the past 4 years, have endeavored to find the best devices in the pursuit of gathering the best data for our patients. So, part of the GluCare journey is in real life, doctors, nurses, coaches, wellness professionals, and so on. But an equally big part of the GluCare journey is everything that happens between those visits in the cloud. So we're constantly capturing data on our patients. And that data comes from continuous glucose monitors. A lot of people have seen, people wearing that on their arm. It comes from your scale that's connected. It can come from your Apple Watch. It can come from, your phone when you're logging food or other things. One of the metrics that we really want to dive deeper into is that of sleep and stress. And, Apple Watch is a great device. I wear it when I do sports, but battery life isn't great. So it's not actually a great device for sleep analysis practically. And then also in terms of the analytic or the algorithmic platform behind it, actually the Oura Ring is better. Not according to me. I'm not smart enough to judge that. But according to people who measure these things, the Oura Ring is the best device on the market when it comes to sleep analytics. Plus, it lasts 6-7 days.
Yes.
It's comfortable. It's a form factor people are used to. Well, married people are used to, I guess.
Literally.
Yeah, but actually, fun fact, they actually recommend that you wear the Oura either on your index finger or your middle finger, because you get the best readings, not on your ring finger. I didn't know that. So I had sized myself wrong initially. But yeah, so, we had always known about the ring form factor, right? Because the ring itself is reasonably new. So when we started GluCare, the ring form factor was not a thing.
Yeah.
So we were using Fitbits. And, so we had a partnership with Google and Fitbit directly. It was tough because we're a tiny little company in Dubai and they're Google.
Yeah.
So try having a fast-paced, iteration-based, fail fast kind of mentality. It didn't work. We couldn't iterate fast enough on a scientific agenda, on a research agenda. I mean, the partnership was good. It was respectful. The commercials were fine. In fact, they gave us such a good price on the device that we could afford to give it away for free. But in the end, they ended up discontinuing the Fitbit, which was a bit fortuitous because when we went out to look at the market at that time, Aura had come into its own as a company. They had achieved scale. I had met a great guy in Boston, their chief scientist, Shyamal Patel. And, he and I had a chat about, well, what abstract, what's the future of medicine?
Yeah.
How important are wearables? What is the centrality of data in the context of having a better handle on metabolic health, for example? So we had a great conversation. And then later, one of Aura's investors connected me directly to Tom, the CEO. We met in Silicon Valley when I was out there with family, and very quickly, meeting of the minds, we were like almost fully aligned in terms of what the mission is and what the joint mission is. And so it was just a very easy partnership.
And it's the alignment again.
The alignment was there.
Yeah.
Tom is fantastic. His team is great.
Yeah.
The device is amazing. I mean, I've been wearing one for a while now, and my gosh, I can't even see a single scratch on this thing. And I've put it through its paces. The thing's made of titanium. It's like bulletproof. I don't know what maybe they, some comet fell to Earth and they took
Amazing.
I don't know. But it's a great device. And it's more than just the marketing, right? It's how can they have a scientific team? We have a scientific team. We're going to get those brains together to tackle questions that's not been asked or analyzed before in a robust way. Because the data that we're capturing at GluCare in one place has never really existed that way.
Yeah.
Think about that. The data that you have access to as a patient today, no patient in human history has had access to that kind of data. Right? Tracking your sleep every night.
No. Yeah.
Actually, one of my first businesses, well, it was a family business.
It can tell a lot.
It can tell a lot. I mean, when I was expelled from med school, I ended up working for my family business. It was my aunt who had started and built the largest chain of diagnostic sleep centers in California. And when I joined her, it was still only 3 clinics. So, saw it through the growth phase. But to do sleep diagnostics I'm going to age myself now. I'm actually 92 years old, folks, listening.
Yeah,
so,
right.
So my longevity protocol is on the website. You can download it now. No. So yeah, this was probably 2003. And if you want to do a sleep study, you had to attach yourself to a whole bunch of leads and wires and go to a sleep lab and overnight. It was nuts. And now, not all of that you can get because you can't get all of the signals from a ring, but I mean the power of wearables is astonishing in how fast it's become as central to our clinical care model. But the medical community is not utilizing it to its full extent because, doctors in medical school were not taught any of this stuff.
True.
They don't know how to interpret it. They don't have time to interpret it. And even if they did, the insurance companies wouldn't pay them for that time.
But it's amazing to see GluCare and such like a business partnering up honestly with such
it's Aura's first clinical partnership.
Yeah.
So we're proud of that.
Yeah.
And look, I mean, I don't applaud it yet because we haven't, we have to publish. So just, wait a bit. And hopefully over the next 6 to 12 months, we'll start coming out with some publications looking at the role that sleep and stress, because Aura not only does sleep during the nighttime, but during the daytime they launched a stress score, and just a couple of days ago they launched a new algorithm on resilience, which I haven't even tested out yet.
Yeah,
very excited to. But that's what's so cool. Like with the same data
adaptation
stream,
and
new algorithms coming out every day, and so on. So it's a great space to be in. It's really exciting.
Amazing.
It's really easy to motivate your teams.
Yes.
Right? Because people feel like, wow, I'm at the bleeding edge of science here. And we're getting to a place where real, true scientific innovation can happen outside of, big academic research centers and so on. It can happen between 2 startups.
Yep.
for example.
Yep,
So we're really
exactly.
excited about that.
Okay, one last thing. One quick advice for entrepreneurs that they just want to start their business.
Just do it. No, yeah, that was so cliche. Okay, again, putting on my investor hat, what I see in founders that I don't invest in is people who don't listen.
Oh, good one.
Yeah. So people who are so into their idea and believe so much that it's going to be a unicorn bazillion-dollar company that they're blinded to the pitfalls and they don't have the wisdom to listen. So if you're a founder with an idea that you think is really awesome, and it may very well be, talk to people that are smarter than you, listen to those people, ask a lot of questions. Don't convince them that your idea is great. Ask a lot of questions about the foundational pillars or the assumptions that you think make your idea valid. Challenge yourself and then listen to those responses. And those responses might be good, they might be terrible. But going through that iterative process will show you that there were things that you missed, there were risks that you didn't identify, and there are course corrections that you can make. Yeah, the humility to listen, I think, is probably the one thing I would say.
I love it. Ali Hashemi,
Thank you.
co-founder of GluCare. Thank you
Thanks.
so much.
Thanks
I've
for
learned a
having me.
lot. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.